Right. Am I audible, everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Good
Yes,
evening.
ma'am.
Right.
Good
Okay,
evening.
thank you. Good evening, everyone. We'll start with the class, right? Let's not waste time. I have quite a number of questions for you to work on for today's topic, so I don't think we should uh, wait anymore. Okay, let's start with it. I'll share the screen with you in a short while. Just confirm with me after you're able to see the screen. You can see it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to work on the clauses part here. I think the week 2 and 3 through is going to talk mostly to you about clause, and this is a very prominent topic in the advanced English part, right? So let's start working on it. I have, I think, 3 different exercises. One on identification of the types of clauses. One on identification of subordinate clause itself, right? And then one more, I think, particularly on complex sentences and subordinate clauses, right? But just to begin with, we know when we talk about clauses, we are referring to something that is different from a phrase for sure, right? And what makes it different from a phrase is that a clause is always going to have a subject and a verb of its own. In that sense, even a sentence in English can also be referred to as a clause, right? So this is the basic idea when you discuss about clause. And then comes the clause structure, right? You would have heard several terms, or there are several terminologies associated with this topic of clause. Some people would use the terms dependent and independent clauses, right? Some would prefer using dependent and subordinate clause, right? Or a main clause and a subordinate clause, right? Some other people would also prefer using the matrix clause and the embedded clause, right? All of them technically mean the same, right? People who have written grammars on the clause structure, they use these terms based on what they understand of the functions of these clauses are in a language, right? So the traditional grammar books usually use the terms like main clause, principal clause, dependent clause, independent clause, right? In traditional grammars, you will find it. In the modern linguistics, however, people would use words like matrix clause and embedded clause, right? They use the word embedded for a different reason, right? Because they also look at how language functions or how it is located or how the faculty of language works in your mind, right? As it works as a faculty in your mind. So they have chosen terminologies based on that. So if you listen to these things in the lecture, don't be confused about it. They're all basically referring to the same thing, but they just use different terminologies based on their origin of study or the school of thought of studies. Okay. Um, Independent clause, subordinate clause, embedded clause, all of them refer to the same thing. And main clause, independent clause, main clause, matrix clause, all of them refer to the same thing. Dependent, subordinate, embedded, they all more or less mean the same, right? For our purpose and for the exams as well, I think you're mostly going to see the terms subordinate and independent, right? Mostly independent and subordinate is what you're going to hear. So I've also included only that in the exercise since that's what you're going to be dealing with. Okay. Now, independent clauses, how are they different from the subordinate clauses? The name itself is like self-revealing, right? We don't have to dive deep into it. But what is independent clause? What is an independent clause? How is it different from a subordinate clause? Okay, that's all we need to know.
Subordinate clause doesn't makes meaning, full meaning,
Right.
while
It
the independent
requires
clause makes meaning.
correct. Absolutely. So subordinate, as the name suggests, is subordinate to something. And usually it is subordinate to the independent, right? Which means it cannot stand on its own. It requires the help or it requires to be placed within an independent clause to get its meaning, right? On its own, it cannot have an existence. Whereas independent, as the name suggests, is very independent, right? It doesn't require the help or support of an additional element or a clausal structure to deliver the meaning, right? So this is the basic difference between both of them. Now, when it comes to subordinate clauses, usually you have three kinds of distinction. There are more, but to begin with, based on the functions they perform, based on what that particular subordinate clausal unit functions as in the given sentence, you can have either an adjectival clause or an adverbial clause or a noun clause, right? So three basic distinctions based on the functions of the clausal structure could be adjectival, adverbial, and noun, right? So this is all you need to know at this point. Later on, you're going to also look at the if and whether clauses, that clauses. All of those are basically subsets of this, right? So they figure in the sentences at various positions, but wherever they figure in, they're going to be a subset. They're going to belong to one of these three divisions that we are going to discuss today, which is either adjectival, adverbial, or noun. Okay. Okay, that's all about the discussion on that. Now, what is more important is how do we identify and how can we do that, right? So let's see this one. So first question you have here is on the identification of the independent and subordinate clauses. So we are not going to look at the types of clauses as yet. We're first going to look at what is the independent clause here and what are the subordinate clauses here, okay? The first one, could you try and do that for the class? Mite specialists have identified 30,000 species of mites, but they believe that these represent only a tenth of the total number. This is your sentence. What do you think is the independent clause and what part of this you think is a subordinate clause? How many independent clauses in this sentence?
2. There are 2 independent clauses in this sentence.
That is then only a tenth of. There are only 2? 3. Right, so you have the whole of that sentence, right? Mite specialists have identified so on and so forth. Within that, again, you have 2 independent clauses, right? You have actually, there are 2 independent clauses. Thank you. So mite specialists have identified 30,000 species of mites, right? This is one. And then the second one is what? But they believe that these represent only 10th of the total number, right? So if you have 2 independent clauses already, then do you want to dig deep
Compound
into this
sentence.
and see? This is a compound sentence, of course, but do you want to see if there are other subordinate clauses, maybe, inside this somewhere? For sure, there are 2 independent clauses, no doubt. But are there any subordinate clauses? There is a that clause here, right? Don't you see that? That these represent only a tenth of the total number. See this one? What is this? Is this an independent clause?
No, subordinate
No.
clause.
Now, this is a subordinate clause. So this is a that clause because it begins with the, relative pronoun that, right? That can also function as a conjunction as well as a relative pronoun. So in this case, it's a relative pronoun. That these represent only a tenth of the total number, right? Now, this is what? This is an example of a subordinate clause here, right? So within the independent clause, but they believe that so on and so forth, you have the subordinate clause that these represent only a tenth of the total number, okay? Right, now if you look at the second one, right? They refuse to say what they would do if the strikers did not return to their jobs. How many independent clauses, how many subordinate clauses, or are there any subordinate clauses at all? You can make the decision. They refuse to say what they would do if the strikers did not return to their jobs. How many independent clauses?
2.
Which are they? Which are they?
They refused to say, and that if the strikers didn't return.
So they refuse to say, and if the strikers did not return to their jobs, particularly the second one, is that an independent clause? If the strikers did not return to their jobs, you only have half of the clause there. You don't have it entirely. If the strikers did not return to their jobs is not an independent clause, right? Yes, no?
Three subordinate.
It is a subordinate clause.
Independent.
So you have only one independent. Correct. Somebody answered. One independent
to
clause
subordinate.
alone. Correct. One independent and one subordinate. Is that so?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So there's one independent, but then you have more than one subordinate clauses here. Now I want to hear from you what these are.
What they would do if the strikers did not return to their jobs. What they would do
So-
is first one.
Right,
If
right.
the strikers did not return, second one.
So you are right in taking out the subordinates, but
To say.
you need to be more specific, right? So they refused to say what they would do if the strikers did not return, so on and so forth, is your independent clause. First subordinate clause is to say what they would do if the strikers did not return to their jobs, right? This is your first subordinate clause. Second subordinate clause is what they would do if the strikers did not return to their jobs. Third one is if the strikers did not return to their jobs, would be the last, right? So the brackets therein indicates embedding, right? So the larger clause, the larger independent clause to say what they would do, so on and so forth. Within that is embedded what they would do if the strikers did not return, within which is embedded if the strikers did not return to their jobs. Okay. So three of them. Make sure what you are picking out, right? In the options, you would be, they might just give you what they would do. But what they would do is not the subordinate clause. What they would do if the strikers did not return to their jobs is the subordinate clause. Similarly, to say is not the subordinate clause. The whole of that follows, whatever follows, it would be the subordinate clause. Keep that in mind. Okay. The third one, they claimed that the rooms are clean, the trash is regularly collected, and the bedding is changed. How many subordinate clauses?
One main clause, one
Independent clauses.
subordinate clause.
One main clause, one subordinate clause. Okay, and what's the subordinate clause?
That the rooms are clean, the trash is regularly collected, and the bedding is changed.
Correct. Correct. Okay, everyone? That the rooms are clean, the trash is regularly collected, and the bedding is changed. This is your subordinate clause. One independent or one main and one subordinate. The last one here. The police advised commuters to avoid using the Janmarg, and they advised motorists to expect long delays and to make only necessary journeys. How do you go about with this? The police advised commuters to avoid using the Janmarg, and they advised motorists to expect long delays and to make only necessary journeys.
Two main,
How many
two
independent
subordinate.
clauses? How many independent clauses?
Two.
Two, right? And which are they?
The police advised the commuters to avoid the Janmarg,
Correct. And
and they advised motorists to expect long delays and to make
only necessary
necessary
journeys.
journey.
Correct, correct, correct. So two independent clauses. Now, subordinate clauses, how many?
Two.
Okay, which are they?
To avoid using the Janmarg,
Correct.
to expect long delays, and to make only necessary
Only
journeys.
necessary journeys. Okay, so two of them, both of them are to avoid using Janmarg, to expect long delays, and to make only necessary journeys. They become your subordinate clauses. Okay, so know how to choose your subordinate clauses from the bigger sentences, right? Okay, so moving on, we'll go to complex sentences and subordinates clauses again. So in each of the following sentence, underline the subordinate clauses. Okay, so again, same thing. We are going to pick out the subordinate clause from the given sentences. First one, the Sichuan earthquake left a trail of destruction, changing the landscape forever.
Changing the landscape forever.
Okay, changing the landscape forever. This is your what? This is your subordinate clause. Okay. Now, latest figures suggest that over 69,000 people have been killed.
That over 69,000 people.
Right. That over 69,000 people have been killed. I hope the others who are listening, you also understand, the answers. If there are confusion,
Sorry, ma'am, but please explain the subordinate clause.
right. So why have you not been asking all this while? So what is a subordinate clause? Who can
Actually, ma'am,
explain?
I raised my hand, but I think
Oh,
that's
I'm not looking at that thing because this is signed in through a phone. So you can just unmute yourself and ask in case there are doubts.
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
everybody.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Anybody in the call? Let's see if you can explain subordinate clause. What do we mean by subordinate clause?
Ma'am, which are explained by the independent clause or which are dependent on the independent clause.
Which are dependent on the independent clause, or they're dependent on some sort of structures to fulfill the meanings, right? So they on their own cannot give you a full meaning. They're only part of the whole. So they need to depend on something else to be grammatical as well as, give the whole meaning correctly, right? So that's a subordinate clause. Okay. Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Haha. Then, okay. So the third one, can you try? Then the Beijing government responded quickly to a disaster that no one could have predicted. Sorry, we basically figuring out a subordinate clauses. Which part of this is a subordinate clause?
Ma'am, that no one could have predicted.
Right, that no one could have predicted. Quickly to a disaster that no one could have predicted. Correct. So that no one could have predicted is your subordinate clause. It cannot stand on its own. It needs to be attached to a main clause for it to make sense, right? Or for it to be grammatical. Right. Fourth one, flying over the vast area, we could see that rescue would not be easy.
Rescue would not be easy.
Flying over the vast area.
Flying over the vast area, yes, that is one subordinate clause. And then there's another subordinate clause, which is
That rescue would not be
yeah,
easy.
that rescue would not be easy, right? Flying over the vast area. This is also subordinate clause, right? And then the second one is that rescue would not be easy.
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
we
here.
can't say that flying over the vast area as an independent clause because it is not dependent
Flying
on.
over the vast area, no, it's not complete. No, flying over the vast area is not a complete expression, complete sentence.
Oh, okay.
Because where's your verb? You don't have it, right?
Oh, yeah. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, someone else was also asking a
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
Huh.
That rescue would not be easy. It's a subordinate clause because it not identify about what the kind of rescue, right?
Correct. As in, it's a part of the larger sentence. If you just take out that rescue would not be easy, it's not a complete thing, right? It does not give you full meaning. So that's why this is ungrammatical as well as something that is, unproductive in terms of giving you meanings. Okay, so subordinate clause. Okay, fifth one, over 1 million people were forced to leave their villages. Over 1 million people.
Over
were-
1 million people.
Over 1 million people were forced to leave
Forced to
their
leave
villages.
villages.
Over 1 million people, why would that be a clause?
Forced to leave their villages.
No subordinate.
No subordinate. Okay.
No.
For forced to leave their villages. For what? So forced to leave their villages, you don't see anything there?
Yes, ma'am. That could be subordinate clause.
That could be subordinate, but we need to check if it is subordinates because to leave their villages is basically an adjunct, so it doesn't matter. Even if we stop at forced to leave, I do not know if it qualifies as subordinate clause. Okay, we'll check with that sentence. Okay, some people may say this is an infinitival subordinate clause, but please make a note of this. I need to check back on this. If just saying to leave, forced to leave, would be considered a clause, subordinate clause. Okay, so we keep that at that there. But
Ma'am,
over 1 million people is certainly not a clause. Yeah.
Ma'am,
Sorry.
what if we use like due to the landscape, uh, landscape
No.
over
Huh.
then it will be like subordinate clause. No.
No, not really, because again, due to you basically using a due to is what cause. So that's a conjunction. So we don't really understand that as a a clause, necessarily a clause. Um, Clause needs to have a verb and a subject of its own. Okay, there should be conceptually a space for a subject and verb, which is why I think to leave can be counted as a subordinate clause, because it's because it's an infinitive that there is no subject there. Ideally, if there was something else, we could have had a subject. But anyway, in case, because we are doubtful, we'll check and get back to it. Let's not come to a conclusion right away. But due to, again, it won't be, even if you add a due there, it's not going to become a subordinate clause, because you'll just, you'll end up adding another conjunction. That's all. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sixth one, battered by torrential rain, rescuers tried to reach isolated villages. So battered by torrential rain, right? This part is going to be your subordinate clause. Okay. Battered by torrential rain, rescuers tried to reach isolated villages. Any idea what this is? If I say battered by torrential rain, what kind of adjectival clause? Sorry, what kind of subordinate clause would this be?
Simple sentence.
No. What kind? Is it noun, adjective,
Noun.
noun or adjectival or adverbial?
Ma'am, adverbial.
Yeah,
Adverbial.
adverbial, right? Adverbial, because it's giving you the reason, battered by torrential rain, right? Rescuers tried to reach isolated villages. Adverbial, correct. Okay. Seventh one, if the rain continues, authorities fear that newly formed lakes may burst their banks. Which part is the subordinate clause?
The rain continues.
If the rain continues, the if clause, right? If clause is the one which is a subordinate clause.
And
So
that
if the rain, yeah, if the rain continues, yes, that's a subordinate clause. And then that newly formed lake, right, may burst their banks. Authorities fear that, right? So that newly formed, that part will also be a subordinate clause. Both. If the rain continues and that newly formed lakes may burst their banks, both are subordinate clauses. Okay. Okay. Now, no one is sure what will happen to the displaced villagers when the rescue work ends.
What will happen to the displaced villagers?
when the
Yeah.
rescue work ends.
No one is sure what will
Two
happen to the
subordinate.
displaced villagers. No, which one? Which ones are the subordinate clauses? Tell me.
What will
Both.
happen?
Which one? Sorry. Come again. I did not hear it clearly.
What will happen to the displaced
What will
villagers?
happen to the displaced? Yeah. And what will happen to the displaced villagers when the rescue work ends? This is one subordinate clause, and then another one. When the rescue work
rescue
When the
ends.
work
rescue
ends.
work
Yeah.
When
ends.
When the
the
correct. So you have two. The second one is an embedded one. So what will happen to the displaced villagers when the rescue work ends? Both of them are subordinate clauses. Okay. Now, ninth one, the Olympic torch relay, which Beijing sees as a public relations exercise, may be suspended.
which Beijing sees a public
Yeah,
relation
correct.
exercise will exist.
Correct. Which Beijing sees as a public relations exercise. This is your subordinate clause. Okay. Now, it is one of the worst natural disasters to strike China in recent centuries. It is one of the worst natural disasters strike China in recent centuries. Any subordinate
Like
clause
China
anywhere?
in recent centuries.
Disasters strike China? No, strike China is not subordinate clause.
in recent centuries.
Hmm. Do you have a subordinate clause here?
No subordinate here.
No, nothing here, right? Nothing that is subordinate here. It's all, there's a long clause as an object here, but then that is not a subordinate clause, okay? One of the worst natural disasters to strike China in recent centuries, I don't think it has any subordinate. One of the worst natural disasters. Okay, yes, it does have. The not strike China, you should have mentioned it from to strike China in recent centuries. Okay, so it is one of the worst natural disasters. You could have stopped there, but then you have added to strike China in recent centuries. This is again what? This is a
Yes,
subordinate
ma'am.
clause.
That
Okay.
it not gives the complete sense.
It does not give complete sentence. So to strike China in recent centuries, that would be your subordinate clause. Okay, it's a special kind of subordinate. You also call it the non-finite or infinitival subordinate clause. Okay, because it has the two infinitive in it. It's to strike. It has a verb, but then it's not a finite verb. It's a non-finite verb. It has no tense. Okay. So to strike. So in that case, I think maybe the previous sentence that we. Sorry.
What is finite or infinite verb?
What is finite and infinite verb? Okay, so a finite verb is a verb which has a tense on it, right? So something like, this one. It is one of the worst natural disasters. You can say it was one of the worst natural disasters, or it will be one of the worst natural disasters, right? So this verb be, the be form has is, was, will, right? Will be, were or are, depending on the number and the person, right? And the tense. But
Here,
that is not the case with,
okay.
that isn't the case with a verb like to strike, right? When you say to strike, you don't know whether it is past, present, future. It's the base form or the to infinitive form, as we call it. Okay. This is called a finite and a non-finite verb. So any verb that doesn't have a tense that's showed on it is called a non-finite verb. Okay, sorry. Yeah, non-finite verb. Okay.
Fine.
Yeah. Which is where it gets the name infinitival clause or subordinate clause, because no tense. Okay, the verb has no tense.
Okay.
Okay. Now the ones which I have, this is from an online exercise. So these are relatively easy to understand. We'll anyway continue with this exercise because there are about, I think, 20 or 24 of them for the identification of kinds of clauses, right? I was planning to do a different one with you, but then I had no access to that document. In any case, this should also be fine. This is good enough for you to understand how to identify noun clauses, adjectival clauses, and adverbial clauses. Okay, so let's see this one. First sentence you have here is, they serve God well who serve his children. They serve God well who serve his children. Now, what is a subordinate clause and what kind of clause is it? This is the task.
Who serves his children?
serve his children.
Who serve his children. Okay. They serve God well who
An
serve his children. Okay.
adjective
Serve his
clause.
children. Adjectival clause, let me see. They serve God well. Okay, yes, this is an adjectival clause. Okay, correct. Okay. But this is also what you refer to as just an additional piece of information. This is also in writing, right? Particularly in writing in English, you call this a, dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier. Ideally, if you're looking at the structural accuracy of the sentence, then you should have said, they who serve his children serve God well. Okay, that particular clause that you have there, who serve his children, should have been placed next to they, right? When you do not do that, you call that a case of dangling modifier. That is, it is placed farther away from the part which it has to modify or which it has to qualify. Okay, so adjectival, correct. And then second one, quarrels won't last long if the fault is only on one side.
If the fault is only on one side.
Correct. If the fault is only on one side.
side.
Right. And what kind of subordinate clause is this? Adverbial, right? Because it gives a reason. So adverbial. That you should say so surprises me.
That you should say
That you should say so, right? That's your subordinate clause. And what kind of clause is
adjective.
it? Adjective? No,
Adverbial.
no. This is a noun clause. Okay. Now, why is it a noun clause? You look at that clause, that clause, it occupies the subject position in the sentence. You see this one, right? That you should say so surprises me. What surprises me? That you should say so surprises me. So anything that can occupy the subject or the object position, right? If you have a clause, whether that is that clause or some other kind of clause, if it occupies the subject position of the sentence or the object position of the verb in the sentence, then it has to be nominal in nature, or in other words, they are noun clauses. Understood? My question? So, instead of that, you should say, so I can replace it with a noun, right? I can, or noun or a pronoun, anything, right? I can say, the gift surprises me, or my friend surprises me, right? So when I use the gift or my friend, what am I referring to? What is it? What is the quality of that word? Is it verb, adjective, noun? What is that? What is it?
Sorry, ma'am. Could you please repeat it
See,
again?
if I replace the first clause, right, that you should say so, with something like, say, my friend or the gift, what is the nature of the replacement? Is it a verb or noun, or is it a
Noun.
pronoun, or what is it?
Noun.
It's
It's
a
a
noun,
noun.
right? So I can use technically any possible noun which doesn't, distort the meaning, to fill in the place of that you should say so, which is a clause. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
So which is why, which means this particular clause is occupying the space of noun, right? Anything that comes there can be of nominal quality, can be noun like. Yes, correct. So you call this a noun clause, okay? Because whatever it is, whatever the clause structure is, whether that clause or something else, it is occupying actually the subject position in the sentence. And subjects are always nouns or pronouns, right? So this is a noun
But
clause.
ma'am,
And
we
this,
should also care about the what the meaning is there, right?
yeah, we are caring about the meaning. We are not putting that out. Nothing happens to the meaning. We're only looking at the structural placement. What happens if we, I don't understand your question actually. Why will it affect the meaning? You can elaborate a little further so that I can help you.
Ma'am, as you told that if I
Huh.
replace that, you should say so.
Hmm.
So, as you told that it takes this subject part, right?
Yes.
So it's a noun clause, right?
Yeah.
So, it depends on words also, that which word we have taken, right?
Whatever you are taking in the subject position and the object position, you are mostly going to have nouns always, right?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Nouns, the object and the subject position in a sentence has to be always a noun or a pronoun. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So based on that understanding, we are saying that, no matter what the clause looks like, if it is in the subject or the object position, then we know that it is a noun clause. Okay. If it is modifying the noun, then we call it an adjectival clause. If it is giving you reasons or manners or place, time, etc., so on and so forth, if that's the information that you get, then you're going to refer to it as the adverbial clause. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, then let's look at the fourth one then.
That you found the money in the closet.
Yeah.
Then it's noun clause.
Okay, what conclusions do you draw from that?
It's a
Your
noun clause.
statement that you found the money in the
Your
closet.
statement
Your
that
statement that you found the money in the closet cannot be believed, right? So what is your subordinate clause here?
Your statement that you found the money in the closet.
Correct. That you found the money in the closet. Cannot
Yeah,
be
that
believed.
money in the clause.
Yes, that's a subordinate. And what kind of clause again?
Adverbial.
Sorry,
Adverbial, ma'am.
your statement that you found the money in. No, look at it carefully.
Noun clause. Noun clause.
Adjective.
Statement that you found the money in the closet. You need
Is it noun clause?
Adverbial. Sorry, adjective.
that you found the money. That you found the money is your subordinate clause, right? That you found the money in the closet, right? Cannot be believed.
But is it will you adverbial? Like it's not
Your
adjectival
statement
because
that
it is
you
not,
found.
because it is not
So
like
that you
adjective.
found the money in the closet is what? It is referring to what? That you found the money in the closet. What is it referring to?
Found the money.
Your statement, right? Your statement. See, that particular part that you found the money in the closet is your statement.
Okay.
Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So what is it then?
Then it
It's
is
basically an additional information about the statement, which is a noun. So this is an adjectival clause. Okay.
okay. Fine.
Okay. Got it. Others? Any questions, confusions? Okay. Understood why you mark this one as, an adjectival clause. Basically, that you found the money in the closet is an additional information about your statement, which is a noun. Right? And because it's a modifier, you have to use that as an adjectival. I mean, you have to conclude that this is an adjectival clause. Okay. Right. Fifth one. Any questions? Any confusions? Anyone?
The noun class and adjective little bit confusing.
No. You cannot explain it that way. But in the question that we just discussed, I'm asking if it's clear why we call this an adjectival clause.
Yes, it's clear
Why
here.
that you found the money in the closet, right? That particular part that you found the money in the closet is an adjectival clause. My question is, do you understand why it is an adjectival clause?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Noun clause, yes. I mean, it takes some time, especially if you're using like a very complex sentence. Then, it all depends on the way you're analyzing the structure, right? So, in the clause analysis, I would prefer you first to look at, what's the subject, what's the verb, and what's the object in the sentence, right? Once you've made that distinction, it becomes easy for you to understand whether a given clause is adjectival or is it noun and anything else, right? So all of it goes by the function that you've already discussed, and we know of all the three things. Noun we know, right? It is referential in nature. So in a sentence, it will take up the subject or the object position. Adjectives we know their main function is to modify the noun. And adverbs we know their duty is to tell you about the time, place, manner, reason, purpose, okay, so on and so forth,
Okay.
about the actions. So if you're able to locate this for the subordinate clause that you have identified, then it is easy for you to judge what it is. Okay,
Okay. Got it.
that's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Fifth one, I asked the boy how old he was. So step by step, first identify the subordinate clause, then look at what it is doing in the sentence. Okay.
How old
What's the
he was.
subordinate? How old he
How
was.
old he was.
How old he was. Correct. Now, what is it? I asked the
Adverbial.
boy. I asked the boy how old he
So
was.
is it
Correct.
also
Ma'am,
adjectival?
why not I asked the boy? It does not
Adjective.
give the complete sense, but how old he was, it gives the complete sense.
Huh?
How old he was, here it does not give you a complete sense. Even as an interrogative sentence, it's not grammatically correct. How old he was is a wrong construction. Okay. That's a wrong construction.
ma'am.
So, I asked the boy is complete. I asked
It's an
somebody. It's a
adjectival
boy.
clause.
It's adverbial, right?
This is not adjectival. I asked
Oh.
the boy how old he was.
Old is an adjective.
Someone is singing behind
Old,
you.
it's no. Don't look at just the words. We are analyzing clausal structures. Just don't pick out a word and say it's adjective. So the clause is adjective, right? Your clause is how old he was. Okay. And we are supposed to analyze what that is doing in the sentence. I asked the boy how old he was.
Noun or adjective? Anyone from here.
I think it's noun clause.
Yeah, it is a noun clause because you can replace it with some noun here. Like I asked the boy his name, right? Or I asked the boy of his age, right? All of that could be treated as a noun. So this is a noun clause. This is also possible. In noun clause, you should be able to replace the clause with another noun. If that is possible, then this is noun clause, right? Like we did in the case of third question that you should say, so we basically replace it with a noun. If this kind of replacement is possible with another noun or a pronoun, then you for sure know this is a noun clause. Okay. Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. Okay. Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown.
That wears the crown.
That
wears
wears the crown. That wears the crown. And this is what? The head that wears the crown. So this is basically
Noun clause.
adjective. Why?
Adjective.
The head that wears the crown. It's talking about the head, no? It's modifying the head that wears the crown. Okay. Adjective. You know, the questions that I've had in the other exercises, they were actually tougher than this one. I thought this should be easy for you. So this is easy. This is in fact actually very easy when compared to other units of analysis. But you need to get a grip of this. Okay, that's all. Once that happens, it would be okay. And all you need to do is identify the subordinate clause and check the function it performs, right? See if it is modifying something, see if it is standing in place of something, see if it is talking about how or at what time or at what place something has happened. If this is the description you get, then it's an adverb, right? If it is qualifying the noun, then adjective. If it is standing in the place of a noun or a pronoun, then noun clause. That's all you need to do. That's the basic simple analysis, but then practice it so that you have a grip on that. Okay, so that wears the crown, adjectival clause. Youth is the time when the seeds of character are sown.
When the seeds of character are sown.
Seeds of a character are sown.
When the seeds of character are sown. And what is this? What kind of clause?
Adverbial.
Adverbial, right? Adverbial. Adverbial. Youth is the time when the seeds of character are sown.
Or
Is the
maybe,
time.
ma'am, it's also adjectival because it
Youth is the
modified the youth.
time when, yeah, that's what I'm checking. The time when the seeds of character are sown. This is actually adjectival, not adverbial. Okay. The time when the seeds of character are sown. So basically, description of the time, right? Time when the seeds of character are sown. So it's describing the time when the seeds of character are sown is not adverbial here. It's describing the time. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, got it.
Got it? Mm-hmm. Be careful about this. Okay. So just because you have when or where or something in the sentence, no, it doesn't automatically mean that it is showing you adverb. You need to analyze it for a bit so that you can understand how this functions. Got it? So don't fall for
ma'am.
the relative pronoun because see when, where, who is that, all of these are also what? They're relative pronouns. So if they're relative pronouns, they can be definitely used as adjectival clauses. They used in adjectival clauses. I mean. So read it well before you come to the conclusion whether something is an adverbial clause or adjectival clause. Okay. Okay. Next.
The seventh one is adverbial, right?
No. It is adjectival.
Okay. How much?
The time when the seeds of character are sown. So when the seeds of character are sown is a description to the time.
Okay.
Okay. Time is noun, right? And when the seeds of character are sown is basically a modifier
Okay. Modifier.
to the noun time. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. Now, eighth one. Servants who are honest are trusted.
Who are honest or
Who are
trusted?
honest are trusted.
Correct. Who are honest and adjectival. Okay.
No,
Adjectival clause.
adjectival. Yes. Okay.
Correct. Correct. Because I like you, I will help you. Because I like you, I will help you.
Because I like
Because I
you.
like you.
Because I like you.
Correct. Because I like you. And what is this one?
Adverbial.
Adverbial.
Yes,
Right?
adverbial.
Adverbial. Gives you a reason. So this is adverbial. Because I like you, I will help you. The dog followed the boy wherever he went.
Wherever he
Dog
went.
followed the boy wherever he went. And what is this?
Noun.
Now,
The dog followed the boy wherever he went. Now this is what? This is a case of adverbial clause, right? This is telling you about the place, right? This is not the boy wherever he went. Wherever he went is not adding any description to the boy, right? This is basically telling you the place,
Place,
right?
ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. So this is adverbial. Then,
Ma'am,
if I
why
like
it is
it,
not noun, ma'am?
why is it not noun?
Yes, ma'am. Because place is a noun.
No, but that is not given as such. No, where is it? The dog followed the boy wherever he went. It is telling you about the place of the action, right?
Action. Okay. Okay.
Ah.
The boy is going wherever.
So
Okay.
if I replace it with something randomly, if I say the dog followed the boy house, can I say that? No, I cannot replace the clause with a noun without having added some other syntactic element in between. That I am not allowed to do. I should be able to replace the clause directly into a noun.
Okay. Okay. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Right. So
Ma'am,
if I
question
like
number
it,
9, which clause is this?
adverbial.
Okay.
Yeah. 11th, if I like it, I will buy it.
If I like it,
If I like it.
adverbial.
Adverbial. If I like it, an adverbial. Oh God, why are they coming back? They spoke in a low voice so that the child would not wake up.
So that the child would not wake up.
Sorry?
So that the child would not wake up.
So that the child would not wake up. Okay.
Again, adverbial, ma'am.
So that the child would not wake up. Yes. Yeah. So that they spoke in a low voice so that the child would not wake up.
It
Correct.
modifies the noun.
That's right. Modifies the noun. What modifies
Sorry,
the noun?
modifying a verb like low voice.
Yeah. It tells you so that, right? So that the child would not wake up. It's giving you reason. That's all. 13th, I did it because I wanted to.
Because I
I did
because
it
I wanted to.
because I wanted to. And again, this one is what?
Adverbial.
Adverbial. Okay.
Because I wanted to do is the clause, right?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
Because I wanted to is the clause. Correct. 14th one, as he was not there, I spoke to his mother.
As he was not there.
Yeah, as he was not there. Correct. And what is that?
Adverbial.
As he was not there, I spoke to his mother. So what are you doing here? You're basically giving reason, right?
Reason, yes, ma'am.
As he was
Adverbial.
not there, I spoke to his mother. So again, this is what?
Adverbial.
Adverbial. Correct. Just as he entered the room, the clock struck 11.
Just
Just
as
as
he
he
entered the
entered
room.
the room.
Just as he entered the room, the clock struck 11. Now, what is this again? Just as it
Adverbial.
entered the room. This is adverbial because it tells you the moment or the time, right? In the larger sense, the time, right? Okay. When, as in it answers the question when. So, next again, if you eat too much, you will fall ill.
If you eat too much,
If you eat too much.
Yeah, if you eat too much. This is again what?
Adverbial.
Adverbial. So it gives reason, so it's adverbial again. Now, we asked him many questions when he returned.
When he returned.
When he
When he
returned.
returned.
Yeah, and
Yes, ma'am. It is adverb.
adverbial. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
At that time, at that moment.
Correct. Time. Correct. Adverbial. My parents were poor, though they were of noble birth.
Though they were of noble birth.
Though they were of noble birth, yes. And
Adjective.
Adverbial.
adverbial, right? Adverbial, because it's expressing condition, right? Gives you a condition. So anything that expresses a condition is again going to be adverbial in nature. So though they were of noble birth, again adverbial. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was as white as snow.
Whose fleece was as white as snow.
Whose
White as
fleece
snow.
was
It's
as white as snow. Correct.
adjectival.
Correct.
Adjectival.
Adjective.
Whose fleece was as white as snow. Yes, adjectival. Correct. Okay. I still live in the same city where I was born.
I still live in this city.
Where I was born.
Correct. Where I was born. Where I was born. So what is this then
Adjective.
again?
Adjective.
Adjective. So city where I was born. Right. So basically,
Ma'am,
yeah.
question number
Yeah.
18. How
Yeah.
it is a adverbial clause?
Because it
Actually,
expresses the
signifies-
condition.
It also signifies the condition of the parents.
No. So that is already expressed using poor. No. My parents were poor. That is your independent clause. And then comes though they were of noble birth. Right. So this basically expressing a condition. Right. Condition, basically cause and effect. That's how
Condition
you
on
look at it.
verb, right? On verb,
Yes.
poor.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's not adjectival. For adjectival, it needs to add modifications to the noun.
Parents.
That is not
Parents.
happening in this case. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
If there is a complex sentence, so it suits for this adverbial, as it is giving a reason.
All sentences with a subordinate clause would be a complex sentence. You cannot have a subordinate clause if you don't have a complex sentence. At least one subordinate clause is
Subordinate
required to
clauses.
make a complex. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So then next one would be not 21,
He met a
21,
girl.
21st one,
21,
right?
21.
21.
So 21. He met a girl whose eyes were blue.
Whose eyes were blue.
Whose eyes were
Eyes
blue.
were blue.
Correct. And what is this one? Adjectival.
Ad-
Yeah. Absolutely. Adjectival. Correct.
Adjectival, yes.
Yes. Then you have, I often wonder how you are getting on.
How you are getting on.
You're getting on.
How you're getting on. And what is this?
Adverbial.
Why? Why adverb?
Because it's the talking about action of the
Subject.
of the object, right?
Is it? I don't know. Where is the object, by the way? What's the object in this sentence?
How you are getting on. You,
Yeah, that's your object. Okay, I often wonder,
okay.
even if I remove the often word, which is like a, adverb, I can just remove it. I still will be left with I wonder. So my object is actually how you are getting on. I can ask, I wonder what? And then the answer is, I wonder how you are getting. So if it's an object, then what kind of a clause will it be?
Noun.
Noun clause, right? So how you're getting on is basically an example of a noun clause, right? Okay. So this is one example where it has appeared in the object position. The one which we saw in the third sentence, right? This
Okay.
one, this was subject. That you should say so. This was when the clause appeared in the subject position and was a noun clause. And with the object, you have sentence number 22, which is, I often wonder how you're getting on. I often wonder what? I often wonder how you're getting on. This is object position, right? So this is again noun clause. 23rd, he asked me where I lived.
Adverbial.
Look at the sentence closely before you give me the answer. He asked me where I lived. So ask is what? This is a kind of, it's a verb that you call ditransitive, which means it can have two objects, right? I asked somebody something. So what I asked is the direct object, and who I asked to will be the indirect object. So most of these verbs like ask, give, okay, send, receive, all of these are called ditransitive verbs because they can have at least two objects, not at least two objects. Okay, one direct, one indirect. So this is a transitive verb, and then you have, what is your direct object here? He asked me where I lived. He asked
Where I lived.
what? Where I lived is your direct object, and me
Okay.
is your indirect object. So then what is where I lived?
Noun, ma'am.
Noun clause, right? Noun clause, because it's occupying the object position. Noun clause. Now, last one, the fact that he's silent proves his guilt. The fact that
He
he's
is
silent,
silent proves his
That
guilt.
he's silent proves his
which part is the subordinate clause here?
And after that,
The fact that
then it
he's
proves his
silent. Okay,
guilt.
that is the subordinate clause. Okay, got it. That he's silent. And what is it? The
Ma'am,
fact
noun.
that he's silent. Yes, so I am not sure if you were taught noun clauses in apposition. Was that a part of the lecture? I cannot really remember. So this is not a 2 minutes. Come. I'm coming, 2 minutes. Yeah, I'm almost done. Wait. Come, 2 minutes. Okay. Yeah, so the fact that he's silent proves his guilt. That he's silent, no? This is a very special kind of, this is not an adjectival clause, right? This is, that he's silent is basically the fact, right? When I say the fact proves his guilt, right? Or when I say that he's silent proves his guilt, I'm basically referring to the same thing. By which I mean that he's silent is actually referring to the fact. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you understand? Right. The fact that he's silent. What is the fact here? That he's silent. So they're co-referential, as you call it. Okay. The fact and that he's silent, they both are co-index. They basically refer to the same thing. That he's silent refers to the fact. The fact refers to that he's silent. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is not an adjectival clause. This is an example
clause.
of it is an example of a noun clause in opposition. Okay. Or in the large sense, you can simply call it a noun clause. But to be more specific, a noun clause in opposition. Okay. I am just letting you know, I am not sure if opposition is a part of the syllabus, but then it is a noun clause and it's not, right? Okay. Just, keep this as an additional information. But this is a noun clause. Okay. If people ask you what this is, then this is certainly a noun clause. Right? Okay. Right. Any questions? You should practice more on this, right, in order to understand and have a grip on this. But as far as the explanation or theory is concerned, this is all that it carries, okay, whatever we discussed. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Okay, please go ahead.
Ma'am, it is in a lecture. One example is,
Yeah.
by 8, he was at his desk in his room,
Huh.
which was only a corner in his father's dressing room. Here it is given that which was only a corner in his father's dressing room. So it's a it given that it's a adjectival clause. Why it is? Because it signifies the room of that corner, right?
Because it signifies the desk. It talks about the desk, right? It says, which is a corner in my father's dressing room.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Now I'm
that's why
getting
it's an
after done this session.
Okay,
Previously,
okay.
I don't know about it. That's
You did
why
not
I'm asking.
understand. Okay,
Yes,
no
ma'am.
problem. Okay, if you have any doubts further, you can write to us. We can take the specific example and let you understand. Okay, but I'm glad you understand it now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, one
Okay.
more thing: complement
Okay.
and an accident.
Adjunct.
I have a
Hmm.
problem in it, ma'am. Actually,
Hmm.
the 2 to 3 questions are in graded assignment also, and I am not
Okay.
able to solve that.
Okay, okay. See, so to put it simply, adjunct and complements, they basically, one of it is a required and a compulsory element in order to make the sentence grammatical, which is the
Yes, ma'am.
complement.
I understand the topic, but I am not able to solve the questions.
Okay. And I'll just demonstrate it using an example. If it is still under due process for the assignment, maybe we cannot take it up. But let me just demonstrate it using an example, right? So, for example, if I say, I would meet with my friend, or I would meet my friend, simply, right? So, I would meet my friend, or I will meet my friend, right? In this, what is your subject? I, right? I is your subject. Will meet is your verb. And then you have my friend. Can I simply say I will meet? Will that be grammatical? Is it complete to say that I will meet?
No, ma'am. No,
No, I
ma'am.
can always, so because I can question, right? I can say I will meet who, or I will meet what, right? In that sense. So there is a necessary complement that needs to fill in that space. Okay. So my friend then is your complement. If you do not use that complement in the sentence, then your sentence would be ungrammatical. Understood? Now
Yes,
you look at the
ma'am.
second sentence, like I will meet my friend in the evening, right? For example, or at the college. Okay. I can still have a sentence that is grammatical without in the evening, right? I can stop at I will meet my friend. I don't have to necessarily say I will meet my friend in the evening. Is in the evening necessary to complete the sentence or make it grammatical?
No, ma'am. It's not
No.
necessary.
So anything which is of this nature, right? Anything which is of this nature, which doesn't, which you do not need to complete the sentence or make it grammatical is called an adjunct. Okay. And anything that you cannot, do away with the sentence, or if you do away with it and then it, disturbs the grammaticality of the sentence, then you call such things as complements. Okay. This is the
Ma'am,
basic distinction between complements and adjuncts. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now you work on the examples that you have in the slides and check if you're able to do that. I think you have something like the King of England with something, these are the examples given. But I would say you do not bother with that too much. You look at the sentences, because I think the idea of complement and adjuncts for you people, I think it would be clearer if you look at the sentences, right? Phrases they are very small categories for you to analyze. So leave it at that. Just look at the sentences and make an analysis of complements and adjuncts. That way you will be able to understand it better. If you still have doubts, please make a note of it, what specific example you have doubts with, and please talk to us, okay? During live session, or maybe write to the forum. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Ma'am, can you please explain compound sentence once?
Okay. All right.
Ma'am, can you please explain compound sentence once?
Compound sentences basically needs to have at least two independent clauses, okay? Joined together using a coordinating conjunction like and or but or so, either or, right? It needs to be two independent clauses. You need at least two independent clauses, and they need to be joined together using the coordinating conjunction. Then you call that a compound sentence. So, for example, I went to the college and I went to see my grandmother. So, I went to the college is one independent clause. I went to see my
And
grandmother is another one, and they join together using and. Right? This is an
okay,
example
ma'am.
of a compound sentence. Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
sure, no problem.
Ma'am, I have a specific doubt regarding the example of act and end. Can I ask?
Adjunct.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, it is a graded assignment question. The book with
the
the
date
blue
is
cover.
past, no? It's
Yes,
not
ma'am. Yes,
still due.
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
no
ma'am.
problem. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
The book with the blue cover on the shelf in the drawing room
Hmm.
is the one that you gave me. So
Hmm.
here, what this sentence has dash adjunct.
Sorry, again,
So
question again. How
the
many
book,
adjuncts?
yes, ma'am. The
Okay, so
book
the book
with the
with the
blue
blue
cover.
cover, first one is with the blue cover. Then
Ma'am,
second
why
is
it is so? But it's a signifies that book, ma'am.
because you can simply say the book that you. What is the other part? Tell me the last part of the
On the
sentence.
shelf, on the
Huh.
shelf in the drawing room
Huh.
is one that you give me.
Okay, so you can simply say the book is the one you gave me. Okay, this is a grammatical sentence. The book is the one that you gave me, or the book is the one you gave me. This is a grammatical sentence, right? So everything else that you've put in between is basically unnecessary things, irrelevant, or say these are additional piece of information. So the blue cover on the shelf and the third one, whatever it was, all of them are additional things into that. You can take it off the sentence and the sentence will still be grammatical. Got it?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am,
That is why they are all
one.
adjuncts.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, regarding the clauses,
Yeah.
documentaries about animal which highlight their rapidly changing habitats are
Mm.
the utmost importance in order to be able to prevent the environmental destruction.
Okay, that's a very long sentence. Once again, the documentaries about
Documentaries
animals. Hmm.
about animals which
Hmm.
highlight their rapidly changing habitats are the utmost importance in order
Hmm.
to be able to prevent
Hmm.
environmental destruction.
Okay,
So,
okay.
how many clauses are there? It written that this sentence has four clauses.
So one is the
Actually,
independent
ma'am,
clause.
I'm not able to solve it. That's why.
Yeah, even I am not able to do it because I don't have the sentence in front of me. But there's one independent clause for sure, the whole of the sentence. Then which there's one part which I heard with which is a subordinate clause. Then are of utmost importance. Please read from that there onwards.
Are of the utmost importance in order to be prevent the to be able to prevent environmental destruction.
Okay. Are of utmost importance. Okay. In order to
In
be
order to
able to
be
prevent,
able,
that would be the third one. In order to be able to, in order to be able, and then the next part would be to prevent environmental
yes,
destruction.
ma'am, yes,
So
ma'am.
three subordinate clauses and one independent clause. That's why four clauses. Okay.
No, ma'am, but the answer is false. Actually, that's why I'm
False. I
asking.
thought you were
Yes,
asking the
ma'am.
number of clauses.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you please pose the question? I'm still not clear on what exactly the question is. Okay. Documentaries about animals which highlight their rapidly. This sentence has four clauses. Okay. And it's asking you whether it is true or false. Is that so? Okay.
Ma'am, I put it
Documentary.
in the chat box.
Yes, 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 yes. I just saw it. I just saw. Uh, mm, Documentaries about animals. Okay. That should be the first whole sentence, which highlight their rapidly changing habitats. That is subordinate clause, or for the atmosphere in order to be able to prevent environment. Yeah, this only has two actually. In order to be able to prevent in importance, in order able to prevent three, to prevent environmental destruction, in order to be able, uh, highlights. Yes, yeah, that's right. Three. So in order to be able to prevent environmental destruction is your one clause, which highlight their rapidly changing habits is the second subordinate clause, and then documentaries about animals and the whole sentence is your independent clause. So three. That's why it's false. Okay, Sonali.
Yes, ma'am. It's okay, but how do we tackle about all these questions, ma'am, because it's too long questions and
You just need to break them down into smaller units like I just did, right? So one would definitely be the whole sentence. That is one clause, independent clause. Then you look for subordinate clauses within that. One is which highlight their rapidly changing habitats. Okay. The second one is in order to be able to prevent, which is basically giving reason, adverbial clause, which highlight their rapidly changing habits is adjectival, and in order to be able to is your adverbial clause. So two. Right? Exactly the same thing that we did to the other sentences also. Break them down into subordinate clauses. See if the independent clause has more subordinate clauses, right? And then you can go for the check of total number of clauses. Okay?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, just be careful of these adverbial ones because they can come in various fashion, because almost anything in the language can be converted to an adverbial clause. So here you are not able to figure that out because you did not decipher in order to be able to prevent. That part is actually an adverbial clause because it's giving you reason, right? And then which highlight their rapidly changing habits, basically about the documentaries about animals, right? That's an adjectival clause. So that becomes your second subordinate clause. And then the whole of the sentence is anyway a clause. It's an independent clause. So 3. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Got it? Okay. All right. Fine then. I'll meet you again next week. And before the session, you'll definitely have the doubt clearing session as well. So I'll meet you on Wednesday and then later. Okay. Thank you so much. See you again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Sure.